Tonight we're going to be playing a game based on a book series by Jim Butcher called The Dresden Files. It's a series of, I don't even know how many books at this point, but the crux of it is that it's set into in a modern analog of our world, but one where magic exists and has supplemented lots of the technologies and stuff that we use and take for granted. And the main character in the Dresden Files is a private investigator named Harry Dresden, who happens to be a mage. So, modern setting with several fantasy elements to it. So the game is a cooperative deck building game from Evil Hat Productions, and it's listed as being for ages 13 and up for 1 to 5 players, and perhaps best of all, it's got a 30-minute playtime. So it's designed to be a very fast, very streamlined experience. And interestingly, like some of the other games we've played, it has a campaign mode to it available in which you play through the different pre-made decks that are your challenges in here, each of which is based on a specific book in the series. So you can play your way through several books in the series in a campaign mode, and I forget what I was going to say. And basically set it up to mimic that exact book by only using the characters, because there's also several characters in the game, each with their own deck, but you can restrict the characters you're using for any given book deck by only choosing the characters that actually appear in that book if you want. So some interesting mechanics that tie it into the actual printed universe. There's also a short-lived Dresden File TV series out there too that only lasted for a single season, but was pretty interesting if you're not much of a reader. But let's go ahead and crack this open and see what we've got inside. So as usual, we've got a book of instructions, not quite as thick or heavy as a lot of the other books out there, and like many others, has a specific set of single player rules. So for the solo mode in this game, we're actually going to be playing as 3 separate character decks at the same time. We have the game board, which is nowhere near as big as the Masters of the Universe board, and fits pretty nicely on camera without me having to do any kind of adjustments. We've got several dice. So unlike some games where everything's dependent on a die roll, in this game the dice supplement the values of the cards. So you see that there are pluses and minuses and blanks on them. They can add or subtract from the base value that's assigned to the cards. And then we've got some pieces that are part of the mechanical aspects of the game, with hit markers, which is how you deal with the enemies that you're going to be confronting in the game. Being that Harry's a private investigator, we've got clue markers to help solve investigations as we play the game. And we have fate points, which are essentially your currency for activating and using your cards and your special abilities throughout the game. So they also are a way of controlling the difficulty level of the game by choosing how many fate markers you start with in the available. You're actually kind of setting the difficulty that you're going to be playing under. Being that this will be our first playthrough, I'm going to play on Amateur, or Apprentice I think they call it, and make all 13 fate points available right off the bat. So next up, we've got several character cards, and this game's actually got quite a few expansions to it as well, as the books contain quite a few characters. But the only requirement for characters is that Harry always has to be one of the characters in the game. So if you're playing as a solo mode, you select 3 characters, one of them's always going to be Harry. But this core set comes with 5 characters. Each one of them has specific skills and abilities. And then this core set also has 5 books to play through. So these are each the title of one of the books in the Dresden Files series, and you play your way through those as you go. Each one can be played as a standalone encounter, or can be played as a entry in a campaign. And then we have several side jobs, which are what they call their custom decks. So you don't have to be limited to just the book decks that are pre-made and available. You can take on a side job deck and create your own deck to play against. And that's mostly it for these initial cards that you're going to be set up as. So you see there's a showdown deck. That's going to be whatever book you're playing as. So that'll have specific rules that are only applicable to that specific book. So each book deck is a 13 card set. So some of the other cards that are in here, we have each character having, let me turn this fan off before it blows stuff all over the place. You'd think I'd remember that by now, but I always forget to turn it off at the beginning of a stream. Each character has what's called a stunt, which is kind of a special ability that they can use once per game. And then they also have a talent. So you'll start with each character stunt and talent not as part of a deck. They just kind of sit to the side and are playable under certain conditions. So based on which character you have, you'll have several options available to you for those stunts and talents. And then each book deck is labeled with the title and a backing that matches the cover of the book. So off to a good start with the artwork here. I wonder if any of the ones that any of the books I grabbed have a campaign in the game. No, of course not. I do have some of them in paperback, but none of those 3 hardcovers I grabbed have a campaign here. So, but basically, all the setup's going to involve is what we have here, putting each of the tokens in their applicable spots, and then grabbing out the pre-made deck for the characters that you've chosen for the game and the scenario or book that you've chosen to play as. So as I said, here are the side jobs that when you want to go ahead and build a custom deck, there are far more than 13 side jobs here. So there's a lot of variability and replayability in the game by creating various custom decks or randomly drawing decks. There is a key in the instruction book that has you roll 2 dice, and based on the combination of results you get, tells you how many of each card type to put into the deck that you're building. So you can make it all randomized, or you can go through and add a little bit of manual selection to it. So for this game, I don't really have any idea what character may be any better than any other character, or what book may be a better book to play through than any other. I do know that Stormfront is a book I have, so we're going to play that one. Maybe it'll motivate me to actually get my act together and read it, because I'm bad about finding time to read, and I would really like to do more of that. And then for characters, that's another one that I don't really know any one better than any other. So I am going to randomly select the 2 characters that are going to go with Harry for this game. And that's who we will be using. So I have my 4 options here. I can either randomly select, or if any of you prefer any of the names over any of the others without any context. It looks like Paul and Georgia might be werewolves. That's kind of cool. Susan is a reporter, so Michael looks like some kind of a holy knight, or something along those lines, and Karen looks like either a cop or a fellow private investigator. So the other things to take into account are their talents and their stunts, but again, I don't know enough to make any kind of an informed decision. So anybody like any of those characters we just saw, or let me just randomly draw 2 out of there. I'm just going to go over here where I'm not looking then, and we'll pull out 2 characters and play with those. So we got Susan and Billy and Georgia. So coupled up with Harry, those are our 3 heroes for this game. That's cool. I was kind of leaning toward Billy and Georgia anyway, because, you know, werewolves. But so we'll do the Stormfront campaign, our story. We'll put the decks we're not using, so Michael and Karen, away. And the books we're not using, away. And then we will pull out the talents and stunts for the characters that we're going to be using. And there you go. That's all of the components that we're going to need for this particular playthrough. So the way this works is you shuffle each character's deck and draw 6 cards out. Normally players aren't allowed to show them to each other or whatever, but solo games, so for our purposes we actually put them all face up in next to their character cards anyway, so that they can all be seen, but then each is still played as a separate turn. So as the player, I'm going to get 3 turns each round to go ahead and play cards. So the win condition in this is that you have to solve more cases than there are enemies left by the end of the game. And you enter the end game, which is called the showdown, by either having to spend fate points and not having any available, or not having any more cards, or I forget what the third one is. There's a third condition that we'll check real quick, and the Harry Dresden deck. So the interesting thing about this game also is that you don't fill your hand back up or redraw more cards every turn. You have your 6 that you start with, and that's it for the game, unless you get some kind of card or action that tells you to draw additional cards. So that's an interesting aspect that I haven't seen in most other games so far. But so we've got Susan, Billy and Georgia, and Harry. Susan gets her Arcane Reporter talent and Timely Assist stunt. Oops, why'd I keep a Karen card up? Apparently I can't read, so it's good to be playing a game based on a book series. So let's see, where is the actual Billy and Georgia card? There we go. Alright, so those are the correct cards this time. So Billy and Georgia have Leaders of the Pack as a talent, and Alpha Pack Attack as a stunt, and Harry has Wizard PI as a talent, and Blasting Rod as a stunt. So the stunts all have a ready side to them and a used side to them. So once they've been used in the game, you flip them over and that's it. That's their only use that playthrough. So they are a last resort type of capability. Or, not necessarily last resort, but and then we draw 6 of each character's cards. I'll set what's left of their decks aside, because there is an opportunity that we might get some additional cards out of those decks, but it's all going to be dependent on how gameplay goes. And then lastly, with the book deck, that's going to populate the center of the game board. So we should have 12 of these. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, 13 of them. Oh, my bad. I kept the showdown card in the deck. So 12 plus a showdown card. And they get put onto the board just like this. Now there are 4 types of cards to be found in each book deck. They are advantages, obstacles, foes, and cases. So foes are there to be defeated. Cases are there to be solved. Advantages are there to give you some kind of a bonus, and obstacles are there to limit your abilities in one way or another. So, the green ones that you see on the board there, I know you can't read them, unfortunately, but the green ones are cases, and the red ones are foes. And then the ones with the white symbol in the upper left corner are advantages, and the ones with the caution tape looking stuff around them are your obstacles. So the way things work is that they exist in a left to right progression, with each having a certain range from the front of the board that different character skills will have different abilities to interact with. So in order to affect any particular card, you have to have an appropriate range to be able to reach it. And then the other part of setup is that if you have any obstacles or advantages in the last position, which we don't, you would swap those out with a different card. So we have a foe and a clue, or I'm sorry, a case as our 2 final cards in each track. So of those 4 foes that are on the board, however many are left at the end of the game, compared to how many cases we've solved, determine who the winner is. And that is essentially all of the fundamentals behind this. So now that we've got everything set up, I'm going to flip over the 6 cards from each character. Apparently I can't count any better than I can read because I did not put them all out. So much like the board has, or the book deck has 4 different types of cards, each of the character decks also has 4 different types of cards. In this case, those cards are Take Advantage, which allows you to clear advantages from the board, Attacks, which allows you to obviously engage foes, Investigate, which allows you to solve cases, and Overcome, which allows you to defeat obstacles. So because of the range limit, each time you clear a card from the board, all the cards that are left shift down to cover that card's place so that the game can keep progressing. So you see that the way each card is structured, for example, this one, there is a fate cost, which is that blue circle. In this case, this card's fate cost is 2 plus 1 die roll. So I'd roll a die if I played this card. I'd pay the 2 fate to put it in play, but if that die that I rolled came up with a plus sign, I'd have to pay 3. If it came up with a minus sign, I'd pay 1, and if it came up blank, I wouldn't pay anything, or I would just pay the 2 with no adjustment. But this one has a range of 2 spaces, so I can use it to take any advantages up to the 2nd spot on the board. And then each card also has a fate value if you need to refill the fate because they get spent, then you can discard and refill the fate up to the value of the card that you discarded. Like I said, you don't really want to run out of fate, because not having enough fate points to be able to pay for something triggers the showdown at the end, and that's probably just not something you want to do until you're ready for it. Also, one nice thing about this game, for my benefit at least, is that you don't have to decide a target for a card until after you roll. So you do have to decide how you're playing that card beforehand, but you don't have to decide what target you're going to play it against until after you've rolled it. So there's some leeway and strategy for that instance. So that being said, let's go ahead and see if we can get into this. Alright, so I'm going to go bottom to top for my character order. So Harry, then Billy, then Susan. It did say in the book that for Harry, you want to I don't even remember what it said. So, yeah, there you go. I got a hint and I already forgot it. So we're just going to play and see what happens. And if forgetting it was detrimental for me, then, well, I guess that's on me. Alright. Did not mean to do that. Okay, that's better. Alright, so if I'm going to go with Harry first, then I think I will start with this Refletum card, which is a take advantage card. It has a range of 2, and it you know what? I don't want to do that. Yeah, I do. It's fine. So it has a range of 2, and it has a cost of 2 fate plus 1 die roll. So I'll pay that after I've rolled the die. And we rolled a minus, so it's only going to cost 1 fate to play that card. So I'll pay my 1 fate to play that card and take this advantage. Oh, you know what? I'm off to a great start because I'm stupid. That's the advantage I was shooting for, and it has a range of 3. So the game is supposedly unforgiving, because if you declare some kind of a move or play and it's not legal, in a lot of instances, it doesn't matter, you're stuck, you still have to play it. But I'm just learning, and, well, nobody's here to tell me I can't, so we're going to go ahead and step that one back a little bit. Instead, we're going to go ahead and start trying to solve some of these cases at the front of the board. So because I'm going with Harry first, I'm going to do an investigation called Consult with Bob. Costs 4 fate, it has an unlimited range, and it adds 2 clues to all of the cases in a single row. So because this top row has 3 cases in it, I will use that, pay the 4 fate points to put 2 clues on each of the cases in the top row. Each case and foe has a number on the card that tells how many clues or hits are needed to be able to clear it from the board. And it's cumulative, so each time the round progresses, you go ahead and continue adding until you have enough to clear it. So, moving on, we'll go to Billy in Georgia, and again, in order to continue trying to clear the cases from the board, I will go ahead and play this card, Pack Hunting, as an investigation. It has a range of 2, costs 5 fate, and it adds 4 plus 3 die clues to any case you're investigating. So before I do anything, I have to pay the fate cost. 5 fate, and then roll the 3 die. This time I got 1 plus and 2 blanks, which means I do 4 plus 1 clues to whatever case I am targeting. Because it has a range of 2, I will go ahead and put 5 clues on this case in the top row. And then we move along to Susan's turn, and Susan specializes in investigations, but all of the cards that I can play from her would exhaust the fate that I have available. So doing that puts me in a very precarious position. So I don't really think I want to sacrifice like that. And instead, I will go ahead and use one of her cards to discard and regain some fate. So I will discard her Pen is Mightier Than the Sword attack card here, which has a fate cost of 3, to return 3 fate to my available pool. Right, so that's the end of one play round in solo play. And fortunately, it also means we go right back to the top of the row. There's not like any real enemy turn in this game because the cards on the board are what they are. They don't change. You just continue play until you either until you get to the showdown, and then play out that last round of showdown and see how things end up for you. Oh, by the way, the that third mechanism for entering the showdown is just deciding that you want to. You can trigger showdown on your own whenever you want. So, back at the top of the deck, we can go ahead and start back up at the front with Harry again. So this time I'm going to go ahead and oh, yeah. One thing I forgot to do was, because I discarded a card for Susan, her talent is every time you discard 4 fate points, you may add a clue to the case at the shortest range. So I forgot that talent, but I will go ahead and add one there. So the next thing I'm going to do is probably try to use an attack with Harry, because I don't really have any other cards that I can use for this turn. You can always pass, but you have to pay 1 fate point to pass and move on to the next turn. So I'm going to use Harry's Pyro Fuego card. Oops. Which is an attack that costs 4 fate and hits 2 enemies in a single row, or applies 2 hits to all enemies in a single row, and has no limit to the range. So by paying 4 fate, I can apply 2 hits to all the enemies in a row. Oh, wait. I will apply them to enemies in the bottom row because some cards have special criteria on them, like this Toad Demon can't receive any hits until the Who is the Shadow Man case is resolved. And that's, I haven't been accounting for that obstacle either, so the 2 obstacles that I have in play say that 1 blank becomes a minus on all die rolls, and all attacks cost +1 fate. So 2 other things that I failed to be aware of or pay attention to, and yeah, you have to pay attention to those disadvantages, or they... Oh, thanks. I did it myself. I'm too lazy to do anything too involved with the whole haircut thing anymore, so I just do all 1 length. Of course, it's thinning, so it's only a matter of time before I just go straight to the cue ball look. Not quite there yet, though, so... Alright, so that was Harry's turn. Next up, we will go ahead and sacrifice, or not sacrifice, I guess, but discard. Yeah, for a while there I just stopped getting haircuts, and then I got long hair as I was back in high school again, and eventually decided it was just too much work, so I get it. Really over the long hair. I'm done with that part of my life. So. But for Billy and George's turn, I'm going to discard one of their investigation cards to gain 4 fate back. And their talent says that when I discard, I may add 1 hit to the foe at the longest range. So the longest range is this giant scorpion here. Aw. Well, you can't have it both ways. If she's going to take on hair cutting, she can stop, but she's got to accept the long hair, right? Or she'll just leave you in limbo and tell you to suck it up, because you're a big boy. Alright, anyway, next up, back to Susan. So for this one, I'll go ahead and investigate with her. We have a 5 fate card that adds 5 clues at 1 range. So, pay my 5 fate, add 5 clues here, and now I'm only 1 clue away from being able to solve that case. Yeah, sorry. I was reading their talents and their stunts, because no matter how many times I read them, there's a good chance that I won't remember them. So, anyway, moving on, we go back to the top of the lineup with Harry again. Getting low on fate once more. So we're going to have to go ahead and sacrifice a card to stock that back up again. I guess the best thing to do would be to sacrifice one of Harry's more expensive cards. So 5 fate. Discard that to gain 5 fate points back. Move on to Billy and Georgia, which at this point I think I'm just going to have to go with an attack. This one has a range of 3. It's a 4 fate card that'll do 3 damage. And if I defeat the foe that I'm attacking, I get to collect 2 + 1 die fate points. So I'll spend the 4 on that one. And I will attack the Shadow Man for the 3 hits that this card provides. And then I will move on to Susan, and again, I'm getting low on fate. I can see how starting the game with less fate would definitely change the difficulty level, but I'm going to have to sacrifice or discard again to get some fate back. So I'll discard that and gain 4 more fate. But that will start us back at the top of the lineup again. Oh, I sacrificed or discarded a card to get another fate from Susan, and when doing so I get to add 1 clue to any of the closest cases, which means we collected enough clues here to solve Victor is missing. So that one goes up into our solved cases. And then everything in that row shifts forward 1 space. Alright, so that means this time for Harry's first turn, that first card that I'd tried to play, no, that's an obstacle. Never. Getting myself confused. Alright, so I honestly have no options with Harry other than to pass, because nothing that I have available to him is going to work. So I will pass by paying my 1 fate point to be able to do so. And then we'll move on to Billy and Georgia. And for Billy and Georgia's turn, I'm going to have to do an attack again. So this is 5 fate for 5 hits. May only be used if it will not defeat the target. So this card has 5 hits on it already. So by using this attack, it won't quite be enough to take it out. So I'll pay my 5 fate. And hit that card for 5 damage. And it puts us right back to only having a single fate point left. So for her turn, I'm going to have Susan use her stunt, which is a timely assist, and allows a player to draw a card. So I will use that for Harry and have Harry draw a new card for his hand. And then we go back to the top of the lineup. So now at the top of the lineup, I will go ahead and discard a card with 2 + 1 die to gain back some fate. I'll roll my 1 die. It's a blank, which because of the obstacle that's still on the board means it turns into a minus, so I only gain 1 fate back from that. But when discarding a card for fate, you may move 1 obstacle or advantage card forward or backward 1 space in either row. So I am going to move this card forward 1 space, this obstacle, so that now on Billy and George's turn, I can use this overcome card for 1 fate, and because it only has 1 range, remove that obstacle that I just moved. So I'll pay 1 fate, I'll remove this obstacle, which means I no longer have that penalty on dice rolls, and then this whole line moves up again. And now it's Susan's turn. I'm going to have to go ahead and discard again, trying to boost my fate pile. So this one will give me back 3 plus 1 die. Go ahead and roll my die. Hey, it's a plus, so I get 4 fate back. And now we're back to Harry's turn. Unfortunately, we still got 4 foes on the board, which means I really need to do something about that. But as it stands right now, there's still nothing I can really do. So I am going to discard this card to gain a single fate back. And because I discarded a card to gain a fate, I can move 1 obstacle or advantage forward again. So I will go ahead and move this advantage forward 1 space and move on to Billy and George's turn. So all I can do for them is pass because that card is illegal. I don't have any advantages within 1 space, which is the range on this card, so there's nothing I can do using the cards in their hand. And that moves on to Susan, which again I'm gonna have to pass because she too has nothing but illegal cards. So doing really well so far. Back to the top of the lineup. I'm running out of options here. I guess one thing we can do. Nope, that's only got a range of 1. No, that costs 3 fate. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to discard a card to get some fate back to keep myself alive and in the game, because we're running out of options very quickly here. I'll sacrifice that, which lets me use Harry's ability to move an advantage or obstacle 1 space forward, so I'll move that 1 space forward. I will use Billy and George's take advantage card for 1 fate to be able to take this advantage, which plays immediately. And this advantage says, when taken, active player draws 1 card and distributes 2 cards among other players. So I'll use that to draw 1 card for everybody. So another card for Harry, another card for Billy and Georgia, and another card for, I almost called her Piper, Susan. Piper's the reporter from Fallout, not from Dresden Files. So, and now, as Susan's turn, I will go ahead and Not really do anything again, because the only thing I can do would use all of my fate. So we'll discard, gain back 4 fate, use her talent to add a clue, and back to the top of the lineup with Harry. This time I do have, oh, that's a really big number of clues, but it's hard to not use it. Let's see, how about we just go ahead and attack the Shadow Man right here. This attack's going to cost 2 fate plus 1 die to do 2 hits. It's only got a 1 range. Never mind, can't do that because Shadow Man's at 2 range. So instead I will use Harry's stunt, the blasting rod, to do 1 to 4 damage to any enemy that will be defeated by 1 to 4 hits. To defeat this guy and clear him off the board, at least making a little progress in the right direction. And it didn't cost me any fate points, so that's an extra bonus. These are all going to move up. Alright, and then I will use the last card that I have for Billy and Georgia to try and take that advantage that's out there. It costs 3 plus 2 die fate, but has a range of 3. So roll my 2 die for fate on that one. Oh, minus. So I only have to pay 2 fate to take this advantage, which says active player draws 1 card, then immediately takes another turn. So I'll draw 1 more card for Billy and Georgia and immediately take another turn. This one, I will go ahead and use the 2 fate to engage in the attack that I just drew. So it's got a range of 2 plus 1 die, does 2 hits. So I'll pay my 2 fate for that. And I don't really need the plus 1 die, but I have to roll it to see if it takes one away from my range. Which of course it does. Meaning that was a wasted card because it turned my range into 1 and I don't have any enemy within 1 space. So I guess I kind of blew it there. So now I'm off to Susan's turn again, and I will discard a card to gain my 1 fate from it, use Susan's talent to add 1 clue to that case, and then back to the top of the lineup. In this case, there's only really 1 thing I can do. Well, I guess there are 2 things I can do, but yeah, I guess my only real option is to either spend 5 fate to get clues on one of my cases, or pass. But if I pass, I'm just going to be stuck in a loop of passing. So I guess I'll go ahead and spend 5 fate to do 5 plus 2 clues. So those cancel each other out. So 5 clues to this case here. And then I have to pay a fate to pass on Billy and George's turn because I don't have any more cards for them. And on Susan's turn, I will discard this card to get 5 fate. And in doing so, use her talent to place a clue here, which is enough to solve this case at least. Which advances this row. And, well, I guess I will go ahead and use Harry's last card, which has a fate cost of 2 plus 1 die to do 2 damage. So, plus 1 die. So, 3 fate to do 2 damage to this card. On Billy and George's turn, I will use their stunt, which allows me to add 1 hit to all foes that have at least 1 hit. So that adds a hit to each of these 2. And then on Susan's turn, I'm going to pay 1 to pass. And I guess on Harry's turn, I pay 1 to pass, and then I'm out of cards. So I don't have enough fate points to be able to pass anymore. And I only have 2 solved cases against the 3 foes left in play, which, as far as I can tell, means I lose. So yeah, things didn't really work out so great for me there. But it was a fun game. Yeah, if I had just had a little more fate at the end, you know what I should have done is, instead of using those last 2 fate to pass, I should have initiated the showdown on my own and then paid the fate. I could have paid enough fate to clear one of the other enemies off the board, but even if I did that, we would have ended up with a tie, and ties go to the bad guys, so I still wouldn't have won. Which means I need to get better at playing this, because I'm sure there's something strategic in there that I just wasn't doing right, and I think it's just something that will build on itself and seems like a game you'll get better at over time. That being said, though, it was a fun game. There was a lot of fun to be had there, and I really kind of enjoyed myself. It's fast-paced. It didn't have a super high learning curve, so yeah, I'd give it an 8. Good time. A lot of opportunity there for increasing your skills, which I don't normally associate skills a lot with a board game, as much as I probably should, but it definitely feels appropriate for this one. So, yeah. Definitely makes me want to read the books, though. I'm curious. about the universe. I mean, I've always liked the concept behind it, and I've watched some of the show. Yeah, definitely the expansion sets too. It's like, yeah, I absolutely would like to get some of those. But yeah, this is one I will definitely go back to. I enjoyed it, and the fact that you get to play a full lineup of characters, even on the solo, makes it that much better. But that's it for this one. Yeah, if you have any questions or interested in anything about the game, you all know how to get a hold of me. All of my Dresden books, by the way, Slinky, have come from Goodwill or Salvation Army. They're pretty easy to find in really nice shape secondhand, so definitely probably not hard to go pick one up. So for Saturday, I recently made an order from the Renegade Game Store, and when I placed the order, I got some free PDF mission expansions for one of their existing games, and one of those missions was a solo mode for a game that didn't originally have a solo mode for it. And that game was G.I. Joe Mission Critical, the miniatures-based board game. So Saturday, we're going to play some G.I. Joe miniatures. So hopefully you all come back for that one, and look forward to seeing what that game's all about, because gotta love those miniature games. As for next Tuesday, well, that depends on what some of the games I ordered on Amazon's Prime days involve, because got some new goodies coming. So that one is TBD. But I hope you all come back Saturday, and we'll play some G.I. Joe and see how that goes. But I can also see us revisiting this one, because I had a pretty good time. But that's it for tonight. So, oh, that's good, Jackie. I've got tons of miniatures coming up, so most of the Saturday games are going to have miniatures with them. But lots of fun stuff on the horizon, hopefully. And I hope you're all enjoying this stream series. But that's it for tonight. And hopefully I will see you all back Saturday. So enjoy the rest of your week. See you, everyone.